Ciao guys, today I'm going to talk about some rare human skulls that we have in the collection today. Alright, fantastic. Hey guys, today I'm going to be showcasing the different qualities of skulls that you can find in the industry and what they're used for and how they're categorized. Chonk! Alright, so today I want to talk about the different types of skulls that we get throughout the company and how we grade them based on quality and based on rarity. So normally I don't like to say the fact that human skulls have different values because I feel like they're all intrinsically personal and they should be treated with as much respect and dignity as possible. But when working with institutions and working with museums and with students, there's a quality difference that can be seen throughout all skulls, and this is how we come up with a price for it. So usually when starting out, there are different types of skulls that you can find, and each skulls have their positives and negatives. So this is why it's always good to know what you have and know what is available. So here's a good spectrum of skulls that we have and the differences between all of them I'll explain in this video. So starting off here, you have your regular medical skull. Now a regular medical skull has a hinged mandible. Now this mandible can be moved up and down to simulate the mouth, and also it's common for medical preps. It also has an autopsy cut. And an autopsy cut allows you to remove the cranium and see the inner workings of the skull. So this is the most common type of medical skull found, and it's the most standard of what is seen in the industry. This is the most common type of medical skull, and when you're looking at the quality of skull, just like anything else, you want to make sure that it is complete. So you want to see if there's teeth and if there's missing teeth or not. Now typically, since you can still see the indents of where the teeth sat, this doesn't mean that it's a geriatric skull. It means that over time, the skull has just naturally lost teeth. If it was damaged during transportation, if it fell off over years and years of use, that affects the quality of the skull just because it's an incomplete skull now. The next thing you want to look at is hardware to see if there's any damage to the hardware and the original workings of the skull. So for example here, the screw and bolt that the locking hinge would sit on has been damaged. So this one is a slightly damaged skull. So it's one of the most common skulls that you'll see in the industry is a skull like this that's missing a little bit of teeth, that the hardware is a little bit rusty and isn't working properly, and this is the most common of the bunch and is a lower end skull in the market, but it is still perfect. There's no damage in the skull. So that means that it's still a perfect medical skull, but when looking at quality, it's seen as a lower quality skull. The next skull after this is a geriatric skull. Now a geriatric skull usually means it was a person of old age. So when you look at the mandible, here at the mandible, you can see that there's no grooves like the second one here for this skull. This skull has lots of grooves that indicates where the teeth would go, but this one, it's completely healed over. So this means that during the person's life, they had lost all of their teeth and then the bone had healed around it. So geriatric skulls are usually people of old age. So they have a different type of use in the industry. For example, it's great for studying how the bone develops and how the bone is different from younger to older individuals, but at the same time, these are the second tier skulls where they're not as desirable. And I feel like personally the most desirable skulls are ones that are perfect and in mint condition. So the next tier up, these usually compete for first place, are perfect medical skulls. Now these are skulls that are complete in all forms. So that means that there's no issues with hardware and all the teeth are accounted for. Usually amongst individuals, amongst institutions, this is the most desirable skull because it's the best for teaching and it's the best for examining human osteology. With this, it truly is complete and the best for being able to show and demonstrate how the skull works. So this is the most desirable piece and overall is the most sought after out of all the skulls. So that's the difference between these two skulls, is even though they're both perfect and they're both amazing pieces, this one just has a higher quality just because it's in better condition. So it goes for a little bit more than, let's say, this skull that has some damage and also is missing teeth. Now the next tier after that is a demonstrative skull. Now this is a Kilgore International Demonstrative Skull, and these are skulls that show different demonstrations. So for example, this one, the mandible opens up and you can really see the inner workings of the teeth and how it works. So demonstrative skulls are usually a little bit more expensive than regular medical skulls because you're able to open up and really see how the skulls work. This is perfect for medical students. This is perfect for doctors and individuals that are trying to learn more about anatomy, because you can really go in and see the type of abnormalities or the type of issues that the skull could have. So this is a really, really great skull, and usually demonstrative skulls are in really good condition. So they're really desirable amongst collectors. The last skull that we have is a pathology or an abnormality skull. Now this is a skull that has some sort of abnormality or some sort of pathology that makes it different from regular skulls. For example, this was a skull that had an artificial prosthetic placed onto the jaw. Now as the teeth started to fall out for this individual, he had mouth prosthetics put in during his life. So I can show you it here. So this is an extremely interesting skull because you can see here he had 2 silver caps placed into his bottom mandible, and when you pick it up, the prosthetic piece can actually be removed on the bottom and top part. So bringing it out here. So these were 2 prosthetics that were put in, and these were done just for the individual, but it was to simulate the missing teeth. So if you see here, just like the geriatric skull, the teeth had fallen out and this individual has seen teeth loss. So then as a result, during his lifetime, they put prosthetics in to counter that. But anything you see here are all original teeth that still remained during this person's life. So he had 2 silver caps pulled in where it appears that the teeth was grounded down and they put caps on it. So then when you take the mouth prosthetic, it fits right over these silver caps and replaces the teeth. So same with the top part, putting the prosthetic back in place. So here the prosthetics went back in place, and these were probably done while the person was still alive and before they passed away. So this is an extremely rare and interesting item, and it's very, very uncommon for most medical skulls. So I feel like the most rarest category of skulls that you see are skulls that don't have, or skulls that have some sort of pathology or abnormality that makes it not normal. So those are the main types of skulls that I see from a day-to-day basis and that I interact with a lot in this industry and that the business gets in. But I just also wanted to say that it's a very delicate subject and it's very, very sensitive to a lot of people. I feel like in Western culture and in Eastern culture, there's a huge importance of the burial and the rest of the dead. What do you do when your grandma gets old? You put her in a home. What do you do when she passes away? You put her in the ground. There's such an importance on the burial and the resting of a human soul that when people see a real human skull, it is quite literally the embodiment of death. The metaphysical aspect of what makes a person is gone, and all that's left is a shell of their former self. So it's an extremely sensitive topic and it's hard for a lot of people to stomach, but this is why I really wanted to talk about what's out there and talk about the type of things that are seen in the world, because they do exist. And that's something that I think is beautiful and something that I think should be cherished and enjoyed because of how much studying human anatomy has helped humans throughout history. So I think that being able to have a conversation and being able to showcase this to people that wouldn't regularly be able to see and interact with this on a day-to-day basis is something I really want to do here at the company. So if you like what we're doing and if you want to support us, I really appreciate it, and that's what I have for you today. Ciao everyone!